I stood in front of Ashworth Memorial Hospital, the morning sun glinting off the building's windows. My fingers traced the nameplate on my white coat. Dr. Katherine Chen, head of cardiology. Soon, there would be a different title under my name. Chief Executive Officer and Owner. Dr. Chen. My assistant Michael appeared at my side. The board is assembled. Mrs. Ashworth is making her presence known. Of course she was. Victoria Ashworth had been making her presence known in my life for 3 years, ever since I married her precious son James. The fact that I was a successful cardiologist meant nothing to her. I was simply the woman who refused to quit my little job and start producing hairs. Did you hear? Victoria's voice carried down the hospital corridor as I approached the boardroom. Katherine missed another family dinner last night. James was devastated. These mysterious meetings of hers. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from James, no doubt after another of his mother's poisonous whispers. Last week, she convinced him I was having an affair with the anonymous investor who'd been buying up hospital shares. If only they knew. I pushed open the boardroom doors. Victoria sat at her usual place, wearing her usual channel suit and disapproving expression. As the hospital's main benefactor, at least until today, she'd always treated board meetings as her personal court. "Katherine, darling," she purred. "How nice of you to join us. We were just discussing the hospital's future." Perfect timing then. I took my seat, nodding to Michael, who distributed folders to each board member. "Because the future is exactly why we're here." Victoria's eyes narrowed as she opened her folder. "What is this?" "Documentation of the hospital's change in ownership." I kept my voice professional, even as satisfaction warmed my chest. "Effective immediately." The room erupted in whispers. Victoria's face flushed red. "Impossible. The Ashworth family has controlled this hospital for 3 generations. No one has enough shares to." "Actually," I interrupted, "someone does. Over the past 2 years, an investor has been quietly purchasing shares. As of yesterday, they own 51% of Ashworth Memorial." "The mystery investor," Victoria spat. "Your lover, no doubt. Is this how you plan to destroy my family's legacy?" The boardroom doors opened again. James walked in, right on cue. "Mom? Katherine? What's going on?" "The staff said there was an emergency meeting." "Perfect timing, honey." I stood up. "Your mother was just asking about my mystery investor. Would you like to meet her?" "Her?" Victoria's eyes widened. I pulled up a photograph on the presentation screen. A young woman in scrubs, covered in blood, working desperately over a patient. "That's me, 15 years ago. The night your husband died, Victoria." The room went silent. James stepped closer to the screen, recognition dawning on his face. "I was a resident then." I continued. "Your husband, the great Thomas Ashworth, came in with a massive heart attack. I worked on him for 3 hours, but we lost him. You blamed me, said I was too inexperienced, too incompetent." "You were," Victoria whispered. "You killed him." "No, Victoria. Your husband's arteries killed him, arteries clogged by years of ignoring medical advice. But that night changed me. I specialize in cardiology, determined to never lose another patient the same way." I clicked to the next slide. Bank statements, investment records. Every penny I earned went into 2 things: advanced cardiac research and hospital shares. Slowly, quietly, building toward this day. James was staring at me. All those late nights, the meetings, were with investment bankers, lawyers, and the hospital board members who believed in my vision. I met Victoria's gaze. Not affairs, not suspicious activities. Just a doctor trying to save lives and improve her hospital. "Your hospital?" Victoria stood, shaking. "This is my hospital." "Not anymore." I distributed another set of documents. "These are the changes that will be implemented immediately. Modern equipment, expanded research facilities, better staff support." "You can't do this." Victoria turned to James. "Tell her she can't do this." But James was reading through the proposals, his face a mix of emotions. "These are incredible. A new cardiac wing, enhanced emergency services. All the things your father wanted to do," I said softly. "All the innovations he planned before his death." I found his old notebooks, his dreams for this place. Victoria collapsed back into her chair. "Thomas's notebooks. How did you?" "They were in the hospital archives. Your husband had a vision, Victoria, a vision you abandoned in favor of maintaining control. I moved to stand beside James, touching his arm gently. I never told you because I needed to do this myself. To prove that the resident you blamed wasn't incompetent, she just needed a chance to grow. The board members were nodding, examining my proposals with obvious approval. Victoria's influence had kept the hospital stagnant for years, more concerned with maintaining the Ashworth name than advancing medical care. All those family dinners I missed. I continued. I was here, saving lives. Those suspicious meetings, building a better hospital. The mystery investor. She's been here all along, trying to honor Thomas Ashworth's legacy better than his own family did. James took my hand, squeezing it. Why did you tell me? Because your mother convinced you I was suspicious just for being dedicated to my career. Would you have believed the truth? He flinched, knowing I was right. This is ridiculous. Victoria made one last attempt. The board won't stand for. The board already voted. Michael distributed the final documents this morning before you arrived. The changes are approved, effective immediately. Victoria stood again, grabbing her designer bag. James, we're leaving. Now. But James didn't move. He was still reading through my proposals, a slow smile spreading across his face. No, Mom, I'm staying. I want to hear my wife's plans for my father's hospital. Victoria's face contorted. After everything I've told you about her. That's the problem, he interrupted. I've been listening to what you told me instead of seeing what was right in front of me. As Victoria stormed out, the heavy boardroom doors slammed behind her. I felt 15 years of weight lift from my shoulders. Dr. Chen, Michael announced, your first meeting as CEO begins in 10 minutes. I looked at James, who nodded encouragingly. Actually, he said, I believe that's Dr. Chen Ashworth, and she has a hospital to run. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving people wrong, it's proving yourself right, and I was just getting started. Victoria's retaliation came faster than expected. By evening, local news websites were running a story. Hostile takeover at Ashworth Memorial, family legacy under attack. I was in my new CEO office, reviewing staffing proposals when James rushed in. Have you seen what Mom's saying? She's claiming you manipulated hospital records to hide malpractice cases, that you used insider trading to gain control. I calmly opened my desk drawer and pulled out a thick folder. You mean these records? The ones showing your mother buried 3 malpractice suits against her preferred doctors? Or these stock purchase records, all perfectly legal and documented? James sank into a chair. You knew she'd do this. I spent 3 years watching your mother manipulate situations. Did you think I wouldn't be prepared? My phone buzzed. Michael sending an urgent text. She's in the lobby with reporters. Perfect timing as always. I turned on the office TV where local news was already showing Victoria holding court in our lobby. This hospital was built on the Ashworth name, she was saying, tears artfully glistening. My husband's legacy is being destroyed by an ambitious woman who cares more about power than patience. I pressed the intercom. Michael, implement Protocol V. James looked confused. Protocol V. V for Victoria. I stood straightening my lab coat. Want to see what your father's legacy really looks like? We took the elevator to the lobby, where Victoria was still performing for the cameras. The reporters turned as we approached, but I walked past them to a covered wall. Mrs. Ashworth claims this hospital was built on her family's name. I addressed the cameras. She's right, but not in the way she thinks. I nodded to Michael, who pulled the cord. The covering fell, revealing a wall of photographs. Hundreds of them, each showing a patient with their doctor. These are the lives saved at Ashworth Memorial, I continued, including, I pointed to one photo in particular. This one. The reporters crowded closer. The photo showed a young girl in a hospital bed, smiling weakly at the camera. Beside her stood Thomas Ashworth himself. Sarah Mitchell, age 12. The patient who inspired Thomas Ashworth to build this hospital's first dedicated pediatric ward, against his wife's objections that it wasn't profitable enough. Victoria's face went pale. How dare you? Or this one. I moved to another photo. Robert Chen, my father, saved by Thomas Ashworth personally in 1992, the operation that inspired me to become a doctor. The cameras swung between us as Victoria's carefully crafted narrative crumbled. Thomas Ashworth believed in saving lives, not social status. in medical innovation, not maintaining appearances. I turned to face her directly. I have his journals, Victoria. Every hope, every plan you shut down because it might affect your social position. Those journals are private family property, she sputtered. Actually, James stepped forward, they're hospital property. Dad left them specifically to the hospital archives. I found the documentation this afternoon. Victoria's tears vanished, replaced by cold fury. James, you're choosing her over family? No, Mom, I'm choosing what's right, finally. The reporters scribbled frantically. Victoria made one last attempt. The board will never. The board has already approved our first major change, I interrupted. The Thomas Ashworth Center for Cardiac Innovation, funded by the money you've been using for hospital galas. That was the final blow. Victoria stormed out, leaving her designer handbag behind in her haste. The reporters swarmed us with questions, but I had more important matters to attend to. Dr. Chen Ashworth, a nurse called urgently. Emergency cardiac case incoming. I turned to James. Duty calls. He smiled. Go save lives. I'll handle the press. Hours later, after a successful emergency bypass surgery, I found James in my office reviewing old photographs of his father. He wanted the hospital to be more than a name, he said quietly. I remember him talking about it when I was young. Before Mom convinced him to focus on reputation instead of innovation. I sat beside him. That's why I had to do this. Not for revenge, but for redemption. For every patient who needs more than just a prestigious hospital name. I should have seen it. He took my hand. All those nights you were working late, I let Mom convince me you were. Hey, I squeezed his hand. You see it now. That's what matters. My phone buzzed with an email from Victoria's lawyer, threatening legal action. I forwarded it to our legal team without comment. She won't stop, James warned. I know, but neither will I. The next morning, I called my first staff meeting as CEO. Hundreds of healthcare workers packed the auditorium, many of whom I'd worked alongside for years. Some of you may have seen the news, I began. Yes, ownership has changed, but our mission remains the same, saving lives. Only now, we'll have the resources and support to do it better. I outlined the changes, updated equipment, better staffing ratios, expanded research programs, everything Thomas Ashworth had dreamed of. One more thing, I added. In the lobby, you'll find a wall of photos. These represent our successes, our saved lives. But there's space for more. Many more. The applause was deafening. Later that day, as I did my rounds, an elderly patient grabbed my hand. Dr. Chen, she smiled. Or should I say, Dr. Chen Ashworth? I remember when Thomas saved my life 20 years ago. He'd be proud of you. I checked her charts, adjusted her medication, and continued my rounds. Because that's what this was really about, not ownership, not revenge, but carrying on a legacy of healing. Victoria might have controlled the Ashworth name for years, but Thomas Ashworth's true legacy lived in every life saved, every innovation implemented, every patient given a second chance. And now finally, his hospital could return to that mission. James found me that evening, still doing rounds. Mom's called every hospital board member, he reported. None of them took her calls. I smiled. Because they've seen the financial reports, the improvement plans, the future. Speaking of future, he hesitated. About those grandchildren Mom's been demanding. Let me guess, she's been calling about that too. Yes, but I was thinking, maybe once the new cardiac wing is running. I kissed him quickly. One legacy at a time, honey. One legacy at a time. 1 year after taking control of Ashworth Memorial, I stood in the newly completed Thomas Ashworth Cardiac Research Center, watching as our team performed groundbreaking minimally invasive heart surgery. The procedure we developed had already saved hundreds of lives. Dr. Chen Ashworth. Michael appeared at my side. She's here. I didn't need to ask who. Victoria had been surprisingly quiet for the past year, especially after her attempts to challenge my ownership had failed spectacularly. But now, on the anniversary of her husband's death, she'd requested a meeting. I found her in my office, looking older and less polished than I remembered. The channel suit was gone, replaced by simple business attire. Katherine, she said softly. The hospital. It's amazing. Not quite what I'd expected. Thomas would have loved it, she continued, touching a framed photo on my wall. her husband in his prime, speaking at a medical conference. Everything you've done, it's what he wanted. I sat down, gesturing for her to do the same. Why are you here, Victoria? She pulled out an old leather notebook. I found this in my attic. Thomas's original plans for the cardiac wing. I thought, maybe you could use it. My hands trembled slightly as I took the notebook. More of Thomas Ashworth's vision, his dreams for the hospital. I was wrong, Victoria said, her voice breaking. About everything. About you. Why the change of heart? I had surgery last month. At Mount Sinai. She touched her chest. Heart problems, like Thomas. The doctor there. She trained under you. Used your procedure. She saved my life. Irony had a way of coming full circle. The doctor said something interesting. Victoria continued. She said she chose cardiology because of a speech you gave about a patient you lost early in your career. About how that loss drove you to innovate. Thomas, I said quietly. Yes. Victoria wiped away a tear. You didn't kill my husband, Katherine. You honored him. While I was busy protecting a name, you were building his legacy. James chose that moment to enter, stopping short at the sight of his mother. Mom, what are you? Giving your wife something that belongs to her. Victoria stood. And saying goodbye. Goodbye. James moved closer. I'm moving to Boston. The Cardiac Research Center there. They want to implement Katherine's procedures. They need someone to help with fundraising. Someone who understands the importance of innovation in cardiac care. I couldn't help but smile at the irony. And you're going to help them. It's time I did something worthwhile with the Ashworth name. She moved to leave and paused. Oh, and Katherine, congratulations. My hand instinctively went to my stomach, where a small bump was just beginning to show. How did you? A mother knows. She smiled sadly. And I hope I can be a better grandmother than I was a mother-in-law. After she left, James wrapped his arms around me, his hands joining mine over our growing child. Well, he said, that was unexpected. People can surprise you. I opened Thomas's notebook, his neat handwriting filling the pages with dreams we'd already begun to realize. Sometimes they just need the right motivation. Speaking of surprises, James grinned. Should we tell her she's having 2 grandchildren instead of 1? I laughed. Let's save something for her next visit. Later that evening, as we walked through the hospital corridors, I saw our reflection in the window. James, me, the subtle curve of my belly carrying twins. Behind us, the hospital hummed with life, with innovation, with purpose. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Thomas would be proud. Of both of us. I typed back, he would. Thank you for the notebook. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about building something so magnificent that they have no choice but to recognize their own mistakes. The next morning, I had another surgery scheduled. As I scrubbed in, I caught sight of my nameplate. Dr. Katherine Chen Ashworth, CEO, Chief of Cardiology. But it was the smaller plaque beside it that meant the most. Every life saved honors those we couldn't save. Thomas Ashworth's death had shaped my career, driven me to excel, to innovate, to lead. Victoria's opposition had pushed me to prove myself beyond any doubt. And now, as I prepared to save another life, I realized that the best revenge wasn't in proving them wrong. It was in proving that I had been right all along. Right to pursue my career, right to believe in my abilities, right to trust that excellence would speak louder than accusations. James watched from the observation room as I began the surgery, using the very procedure I'd developed. Victoria's words echoed in my mind. Thomas would be proud. Yes, I thought he would be. Not because I'd taken his name or his hospital, but because I'd taken his dream and made it bigger than anyone had imagined. Sometimes the happiest endings come not from defeating our opponents, but from transforming them into allies. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't in winning the battle, but in changing the very ground on which it was fought. As I made the first incision, I smiled behind my surgical mask. Another life to save, another innovation to perfect, another day to prove that success is the sweetest revenge of all. And somewhere, I like to think, Thomas Ashworth was smiling too.